There is a rumor floating around the Middle East that Saudi Arabia wants to take control of the Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which obviously means they would be taking over the Temple Mount. The reason? Well, Al-Aqsa is supposed to be the third holiest site in Islam, and since Saudi Arabia is already in charge of Mecca and Medina, this would make them the effective guardians of Islam. But is that fact even true? Well, you're going to have to keep watching to find out. Palestinian Arabs from Gaza are storming the border fence with Israel. There was another terror attack in Hebron yesterday, which left a young mother dead, and Israel's government is blaming everything on Iran. I'm Luke, and this is the Israel Guys. Hey guys, and welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and notification bell and let me know down in the comments if you are a new viewer. Would love to hear from you. Check out this video from Gaza's border yesterday.
Hey, مين انطاك؟ هاي السلك الفاصل. الله قبل عام
So apparently there was a bunch of Palestinian Arabs, maybe several hundred, that from Gaza that stormed the border fence yesterday. I really liked Hanania Naftali's caption. He said, hundreds of Palestinians rioted at the Gaza border, hurling explosives at the barrier and attempting to enter Israel. I've got a revolutionary idea. If you don't want to get shot, don't try to climb the border fence. Revolutionary. So, guys, I have a couple of difficult stories to get through very quickly, but I do want to talk about something really fascinating, and it has to do with Saudi Arabia. There's rumors floating all over the world that Saudi Arabia and Israel are about to normalize relations. So stay tuned, second half of the show, to get into all of those details. But first, if you watched yesterday's show, or if you saw the news, there was a father and his son that were tragically killed in a terrorist attack in Hawara this past weekend. Well, unfortunately, yesterday there was another terror attack which left Batsheva Nagri, age 40, a mother of 3 girls. She was shot dead by terrorists while driving in the South Hebron Hills in Judea. She had hitched a ride with a man named Aryeh Gottlieb, along with her 6-year-old daughter, who was sitting in the back seat, witnessed the whole thing, and miraculously survived. Aryeh Gottlieb is also being hailed as a hero because he was seriously injured, was in critical condition. Thankfully, he went through surgery. He's now stabilized, but he's still in serious condition. But he managed to drive out of the situation, even though terrorists blocked his vehicle, then opened fire, and 22 bullets were found in his car, as well as bullets from the surrounding area. Unfortunately, Batsheva Nagri was killed. She was, I believe, in the front passenger seat. Aryeh was seriously wounded, and her 6-year-old daughter, sitting in the back seat, saw the whole thing and miraculously survived without a scratch, at least physically. As you guys know, something like this could leave her horrifically emotionally scarred for life. Batsheva was from the Hebron Hills area, south in Judea. She was a kindergarten teacher and a volunteer youth coordinator. One of her neighbors had this to say about her, quote, "She had an infectious laugh and always volunteered with a huge smile." So let's pray for her family, especially her daughter, to be healed emotionally, and also for Aryeh Gottlieb, who is still in the hospital in serious condition, but thankfully has stabilized. The IDF has already arrested 2 Arabs in connection with the terrorist attack. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, this is crazy, has already claimed responsibility for the attack. They are the military wing of Fatah. Fatah is in charge of the Palestinian Authority. The world wants to make a peace deal with the Palestinian Authority. The world wants to make a Palestinian state with the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is controlled by Fatah, which controls which has a military wing called the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, and they just claimed responsibility for a terrorist attack that left a young Jewish mother dead. In other words, the government that the world is trying to make a Palestinian state in, enact the 2-state solution, force Israel to make peace with the Palestinians, that very government is incentivizing their people to go and kill Israelis and kill Jews. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Unfortunately, there's already been more terrorist attacks in Israel in 2023 than all of 2022, and we're currently in the middle of August. We could speculate about what the proper response should be all day long. And as you guys know, if you're ardent supporters of Israel, you obviously want to see Israel come at this wave of terrorism with a strong response. So you can pray for Israel's government, pray for their leaders, pray for the IDF that they will know what to do to respond and to put down this wave of terrorism. Itamar Ben-Gvir, he is the internal security minister. He doesn't have any say over the IDF and Israel's defense ministry, but he did have something to say about this. Because interestingly enough, like a day and a half after the father and son were murdered in Hawara was open for business again. We know that because Hawara is 5 minutes down the road from where I'm sitting right now, and we drive through that town. It wasn't shut down for very long. The IDF didn't, they were there in force, but not for very long. So Itamar Ben-Gvir is calling out Defense Minister Yoav Gallant from the Likud party. There are reports that Ben-Gvir is going to put forward a proposal for more decisive action to be made against this wave of terrorism. Things like closing Palestinian cities, at least temporarily, denying work permits for Arabs to work in Israel or in Israeli settlements or Israeli businesses, opening more checkpoints, roadblocks, allowing Israel's military and special forces to take out terrorist leaders. Ben-Gvir said, quote, "This is a wave of terrorism that cannot be taken off the agenda. Defense Minister Gallant's policy is weak against the severe wave of terrorism." Meanwhile, Defense Minister Gallant and Bibi Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, are blaming Iran for this wave of terrorism. Bibi Netanyahu, he said, quote, "We are in the midst of a terror onslaught that is being encouraged, directed, and financed by Iran and its proxies." As you know, Iran has proxies in Lebanon. They're funding Hezbollah very heavily. But they're not just funding Hezbollah. They're also funding Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which operate in Judea and Samaria and also in the Gaza Strip. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said, quote, "It is important to understand the significant change that is taking place on the ground. It is related to Iranian funding and to the proliferation of weapons under the Iranian directive. Iran seeks every means to harm the citizens of Israel." So what they're basically saying is that Iran is not only funding Hezbollah in Lebanon and incentivizing them, but they're also funding and incentivizing Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other terrorist organizations that are all operating right here in Israel, in Judea and Samaria, in the Gaza Strip. And we're talking about funding. We're also talking about weapons smuggling. There's been they know now that like Hamas and others terrorist organizations in these areas are getting new weapons, new guns, new accessories for weapons, and even I think reports of some like very modern rockets and stuff like that. And this is all coming from funding from Iran. So very, very dangerous. It's very, very serious. So just pray and encourage Israel to do what they need to do to take care of business. Whether it's Iran, whether it's Lebanon, Hezbollah in Lebanon, or whether it's Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or Fatah in the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade right here on the ground. Have you ever wondered what life is like for children living in Israel's biblical heartland? While kids in most American towns are playing hide and seek with their friends, thousands of children in Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, are suffering every day from the trauma of Islamic terror. After David Rubin and his young son were wounded in a terror attack, David realized that his son was only one of thousands of children in Israel who were suffering physically and psychologically from terror attacks and desperately needed a way to heal. And so we founded the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund to provide victimized children with the life-saving therapies they urgently needed to heal from their trauma. Traumatized children are different from adults. They can't sit in a room with a therapist and just talk things out. Shiloh Israel Children's Fund provides unique programs to help kids work through their trauma in ways that work for them. Things like art therapy, drama therapy, animal therapy, and so much more. Every child responds to trauma differently, so they tailor these life-changing therapies to each and every child's individual needs. The success that Shiloh Israel Children's Fund has had with these children is incredible and inspiring. They've helped thousands of Israeli kids to contend with the trauma, to find healing, eventually moving forward to live happy, healthy, productive lives. So, in honor of Israel's 75th birthday, we are determined to save 75 children by Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. Together, let's celebrate this special time of year by saving 75 children to give them the happy and healthy future they deserve. Go to the link down below to see what it takes to save the life of a terror-stricken child in Israel's biblical heartland. So, finally, a very interesting story, and a lot of this is going to be a little bit of speculation because it's not all over the headlines right now, but it is very interesting to note because the entire world is speculating about a Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel and potentially coming into the Abraham Accords agreement. So news has been leaking. I think news leaked in the Wall Street Journal recently that Israel and Saudi Arabia have already agreed to like the broad outlines of a normalization agreement. The White House, I think, denied that report. Maybe they just don't want word getting out. But interestingly, just in the last couple of days, Saudi Arabia announced that their new ambassador to Jordan, get this, pay attention, this is really fascinating. Saudi Arabia announced their new ambassador to Jordan will also serve as their ambassador to the Palestinian Authority and as their consul general for East Jerusalem. Saudi Arabia's newly appointed ambassador to Jordan is also going to serve as the ambassador to the Palestinian Authority, this Palestinian Authority is in Israel, and as their consul general for East Jerusalem. So that in itself is quite a mouthful, quite a lot to take in, and very interesting. But the fact that Saudi Arabia is already like a normalization agreement has not been finalized, hasn't been officially announced, and Saudi Arabia is already like trying to put their foot not into just Israel, but also put their foot into like the Palestinian Authority and have some say in what they're doing. It's interesting. So Saudi and Palestinian officials said, quote, Saudi Arabia wishes to signal to Jordan that it considers itself entitled to set foot in the Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem, which would make the crown prince in the Al Saud dynasty responsible for the three holy places of Islam, Mecca, Medina, and Aqsa. So now they're even saying, as I was reading and researching, evidently for years, Saudi Arabia has been interested in taking over the custodianship of the Al-Aqsa the Al-Aqsa and Temple Mount area in Jerusalem. But because how it works right now under Jordan and Israel's peace agreement, Jordan has custodianship of Al-Aqsa, Temple Mount, under the religious Waqf group, and Israel has the security control. So the Waqf, they've made a lot of trouble there over the years. They don't allow people to pray or express any freedom of religion. Israel basically just keeps the peace up there. So Saudi Arabia in recent years has been expressing that they would be interested in taking control over the area. And they're now actually officially coming out and saying that, and also appointing their ambassador to Jordan to also serve as ambassador to the Palestinian Authority and East Jerusalem. I don't know if you know, but the Temple Mount is in East Jerusalem, as is the old city of Jerusalem. So Dr. Mordecai Kedar is an Arab scholar and expert on many Arab affairs, and he speaks fluent English, Hebrew, Arabic. He's a well-renowned scholar on Arab affairs. He had, during an interview about this news, he said, quote, I doubt that the Saudis want to get behind and reinforce the holy status of Jerusalem in Islam. This would lend credence to the narrative that Al-Aqsa is in Jerusalem and not in Al-Jirana, as the Saudi Sunni believe. Making Jerusalem holy would challenge the status of Mecca. Their most prominent philosophers insist that the mosque in Jerusalem is no holier than the mosque in Cairo, Alexandria. Now, even if that sounds a little bit crazy, it's actually true in that there are very prominent scholars that don't actually believe Al-Aqsa is even on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It's just another Muslim mosque. And Dr. Kedar saying it's no holier than a mosque in Cairo, right? So Dr. Kedar goes on to say, quote, so the question is, what do the Saudis want to do in Jerusalem? When considering the negotiations to bring normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, it is important to remember that the Saudis do not consider the Palestinians to be Arabs. This is getting more political. He went on to say, quote, and I'm if you want to read the full interview, what I'm quoting from, you can check out the source link down below. Dr. Kedar went on to say, quote, they see the Palestinians as the genetic result of all the nations that passed through the Middle East. If the Saudis take over the Temple Mount, it will be a huge blow to the Palestinians. Without Al-Aqsa, the Palestinians have nothing, no connection to the land, no political claim, no claim to status in Islam, even a fake one. If you add to that normalizing relations with Israel, the Palestinians will be off the map entirely. Guys, this is groundbreaking stuff. And as we saw, basically, the world always said, and I think John Kerry even said it, that there will never be peace with between Israel and the Middle East, right? And unless there was like they solved the issue of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, right? Well, guess what? The Abraham Accords happened. 4 Arab nations decided to make peace with Israel without any preconditions about the Palestinians, right? Because it turns out a lot of the other Arab nations don't care so much about the Palestinians. And they finally decided to come out from where they were hiding and just make peace with Israel because it makes so much sense to make peace with Israel. Israel is one of the foremost countries in the world, and not to mention the Middle East, right? Who would not want to have normalization with Israel? So now Saudi Arabia is probably on the brink of normalizing relations with Israel, and as part of it, they're expressing that they want to be in charge of the Temple Mount. And according to Dr. Kedar, if that happens, then there's a good chance the Palestinians are going to lose their entire connection to the Temple Mount, to the Al-Aqsa, fake or real, and which also means that they would lose their entire connection to the land, and maybe the world would wake up and see that they have no connection to this land. This is a whole lot to take in. This is mind-blowing even to me. And as the events here in the Middle East unfold, especially with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Palestinian Authority, and Israel, will be looking at all of these things much more in detail. But my questions are, at the moment, what would it look like if Saudi Arabia was in control of the Temple Mount? Would they let Jews pray on the Temple Mount? Would that be strange? We have, this mosque. We have Jews. We have maybe Christians praying on the Temple Mount. Because if they do normalize relations with Israel and are in charge of Al-Aqsa, it is likely they would want to do everything they could to make Israel happy, possibly letting a different faith like Christianity and Judaism express freedom of religion to be able to pray on the Temple Mount. These are questions I don't have answers for right now, but you can let me know what you think down in the comments below. Guys, in the face of the current wave of terror that Israel is experiencing, please consider supporting the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, link down in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and get the conversation going down below. We love to hear from all of you. Don't forget to watch episode 1 and 2 of our new Adventure Show series, both of them out on YouTube right now. And as always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening in the land of Israel. We're here every Monday through Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.